find out how this model actress did not let an amputation keep her from her dreams. Zoe Xapoian is up next. Hello, Zoe. Welcome to the call. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Doing even better now that I have you on. And so, just to really give some context and so our listeners can get an idea of who you are and what you're about, kind of tell us your story.
My story. Okay. I don't know where to begin.
So you were in your mother's womb, and then no, but and so I knew you were born in New York, and you grew up with storytelling, and you had a passion for acting, and and how his life progressed to put you where you are now and help you become the person you are today. Because there are some things that happened along the way.
Okay. So I grew up in New York and Connecticut, and I grew up going to acting schools there. And then about 6 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles to act and go to school. And few years went by and I started exotic dancing, and I also was a working belly dancer. And then about a year and a half ago, I had an accident with a car and I lost part of my left leg. And since then, I have been acting and modeling and dancing.
No, I love it. And so really kind of dive into that, because that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on, is because a lot of people just, when something like that happens, they just quit.
Right.
They give up. And I think it's so important because, and not only people that have something traumatic happen, just period in general. People, like, they want things to just come easy. They don't, it's like we lost touch with, like what our grandparents talked about. It's like, I didn't get anything free. I had to work for everything I got. And it's like, that's still a reality today. Like, if you want something, like we were talking about before the call, if you want something, you got to get off your butt and do it. You got to make it happen.
Absolutely.
And you were in a situation where that's a traumatic event, because it's not like you were born and that was just life, how it was. Like,
Right.
You have the memories and remember the feeling and what your abilities were, what you were able to do pre-accident, and now you have almost a depression post-accident.
Right.
And kind of walk us through that. Like, what was going through your mind? How did you push through that and pull through that, and just really tell your story during that transition for a little bit? Because I think, transparency and authenticity about the situation can just help inspire more people.
Absolutely.
Because they feel like they're the only ones going through it when really they're not.
Right. Okay. So after I had my accident, I woke up in the hospital and they told me that they'd had to amputate my leg. And I was wondering initially whether my life was over. That first day or two, I was really questioning everything and didn't know what to make of it. And I had my dance director, my dance company director, and one of my fellow dancers come and meet me in my hospital room the day after I'd had my surgery. And my face was all swollen and I was all puffy and crying, and I was like, you guys, is my life over? And they were like, no, it's not.
You were a hot mess and they were trying to shed some light, and it's almost in that situation, like, what are they supposed to say?
Of course, they have to be strong for me. They have to be there for me. But, they were right. They were right. My life was not over. And pretty quickly after that, I think yeah, in that first week, I had so much support and so much love pouring in for me. I never would have known how much people loved me if this hadn't have happened. I had a very supportive boyfriend at the time. I had my mom there, my brothers, my whole dance company coming to visit me, all my friends. And there was such an outpouring of love and support. And I kind of came to the realization that either I could let this take me down or I could continue with my life and accept my life and love being alive and be happy, which is all I've ever wanted to do. And it could go either of those two ways.
Hmm.
There's no real middle ground. So I decided that I was going to use this and I was going to be happy and accept my circumstances and push forward and move on. And, I wasn't going down like that. And I knew that. So I came to that realization pretty quickly and I kind of stuck to that.
No, and that's so important because the only way that anything changed was it really had to come from something internally.
Yes.
So many people rely, and it's one of the handicaps that people rely on social media for, like, oh, how many likes did I get, or blah 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 this and blah 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 that, and it's like, wow, if your life revolves around how many likes you get, then I don't even feel bad for you. Like,
Uh,
you're stupid.
it's
I'm
a
very
new
blunt
game.
though.
It's a new game. There's definitely, the world has changed a lot very quickly.
Yeah, and but you knew that you had the support around you, of course. So if something happens or if somebody's struggling or anything like that, hey, you need to take inventory of who's around you and who your association is. And you had that, and you, like you said, you didn't even realize how amazing of a support group that you had
Totally.
until it happened. Because
Yes.
it's one of those where you don't know you don't know what you don't know. There was
Right.
never a need for that type of support to be shown because you have Zoe and she's doing her thing and she's gonna grind and she's gonna make it. And then this happens where you're literally questioning, is my life over?
Right.
And the exact how or what you're supposed to be doing after this event, like, nobody knew that, but it's just like, hey, all I know is I know I have to just stay positive and say something positive. Is your life over? No. You'll be okay. How you're going to be okay or what you're going to be doing, I have no idea. I can't get into the specifics of it, but it's not like you're having that conversation, but it's really, they just needed to be supportive and create that environment for you. And so when did the switch, like, really flip in your head? And then when did it start presenting a bigger change in the circumstances around you? Because I think a lot of that is just going to be based off of your perspective changing.
Yes. So I made a big shift that first week in the hospital, definitely. But it was still very hard. And I was in a wheelchair for the first couple months when I left the hospital. And that was really hard. That was hard. So I think when I got my leg, that was another big shift, like physically getting up out of the chair and being up higher with my eye line and everything really transformed things for me. And being able to walk again was really amazing. And then I think things shifted for me even more, I think, with my career when I left my relationship. It was something that I needed to get out of and be independent. And I got a place on my own and I started working. And I think that gave me a lot more confidence too. Um, I had a lot more confidence with my career after this happened. So I felt a lot more able and ready to go for things, almost ironically, after this happened. So, yes, those were the big shifts for me.
Yeah. And so is there any specific thought that comes to mind if it's kind of like, how did the accident give you a new perspective on life and your goals? Because you said like you had all of a sudden this drive to start really proactively pursuing your goals,
Yes.
and so is there any specific thought or, frame of thought that kind of stands out that really caused this, switch to flip?
It's kind of horrible, but thought of dying, the thought of dying really woke me up and shifted everything and transformed my mindset. I really was unclear as to whether I was going to live through this when it happened. So that fear of death and that realization of like, what have I been doing all this time? What have I been thinking? Like this is my life and my life is so precious and I want my life more than anything in the world. And I want my life to be the way that I've always imagined it, and have a good life. And also, I lost my father a couple years before the accident,
Mm-hmm.
and he passed away suddenly. And it was one of those things where I was just thinking about it. He didn't know he was going to go when he did. And I think he was leaving a lot of things for tomorrow and sort of putting up with a lot of things that he might not have wanted to. And not doing things today. And so it was really like that moment of when I almost lost my life, I realized I need to do things now. Like if I have the chance to still be alive, I need to really go for what I want now and seize the day.
No, that's so. I mean, it's so important because so many people put off. It's like, oh, I can do it later, and then later becomes never, and then they never really live, and then they never really pursue that dream, or chase that goal, and then they just get comfortable with settling, which is a very scary place to spend your life. But really, and I don't know if some of your goals now are to do public speaking, and you're doing that. So how has that helped change your life? Because I think it's a lot of times when the speakers are up there and they're sharing, it does just as much for the speakers as it does for the people that are hearing it.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's funny, like, even if I'm the one delivering the message, I still need to hear this. It's important for me to remind myself what my priorities are to continue pursuing them. So that's always a good reminder. It really feels amazing to give back. I'm doing this program where I'm mentoring new amputees, and I'm getting just as much out of it as I hope they are. It's really something that I wanted to do pretty much since I went home with this, was to give back, because that was something that I would have liked to have when this happened to me.
Yeah, and so how have you seen, outside of just feeling better inside, are there any results that you see happening because of this switch and this change in attitude of having more gratitude about life, being grateful for the process, being grateful for the opportunity to pursue your goals, not taking things for granted, really prioritizing giving back?
Yes.
I think that's so important. And a lot of people, they always want to take, and give, or not give. They want to take, or sell something or anything. Like, they don't start the conversation off with a giving,
Right.
attitude, which I think is something that needs to happen, not only in business, just period, is people are need to be less self-centered and more selfless, and think about
Yes.
what can you do for somebody else without the expectation of a return.
Yes.
And so what's really standing out in your life since you started doing that? Like, what changes, or what's changing in your perspective, or changing physically in your life once you kind of made that switch and that change?
Well, I'm definitely more service minded now, and I feel more engaged with other people. Things feel less complicated. and I feel a lot lighter, and I think I have more energy.
That's so that's very interesting that you say that. Is the second that you change your perspective into giving versus taking and just being grateful, now you're feeling like you have more energy.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Um, because I think there's a natural course of things and a natural way that the universe wants to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much in line with giving and sharing. And I think that when you kind of settle into the universal flow, things just flow easier and less little problems and issues pop up.
Yeah. And so I know I kind of just dove right into that, and then you just led into it even more with your answer. But I think people need to understand that there's a very important aspect in life that you need to engage spiritually. And I
Yes.
think people confuse being a spiritual person versus being a religious person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, it's like, hey, for me it's Jesus. But it's a lot of people just confuse it. Like, religion is the stuff that starts wars, you know, and
Okay.
people
Yeah.
kill, and everyone's like, oh no, it's this religion is the right one and we're gonna go to war until you believe. It's like, wait, easy guy. I'm not trying to push that. I just want everybody to live a happier life, a better life, stay in your lane. you know for me, it's
Yeah.
it's God. Like, focus on God. What has he done for me, and what has he carried me through, and I just share my story. But I think a lot of people, they need to find their own way of getting on their own spiritual path, and realizing that there are just universal laws out there. you
Right.
know if all you're focused on is receiving, you're never going to receive. But the
Yeah.
second you focus on giving, all of a sudden you start receiving, because you reap what you sow. It's a universal law. And so
Yeah.
how have these laws, and understanding them, and growing more in them, how have they started to impact not only your life but the lives around you?
Well, I hope that my interactions with other people are more enriching, not just for me, but for the other people. I hope I'm touching people's lives in a positive way, and that's something that's really important to me now. And it's something that I think about a lot more now.
And you're very aware of it. and
Yeah.
and so I guess, really, kind of to take a step back, is, so for somebody that's in the situation that you were in, it's like you said, like, it's very easy for them to fall into a very negative state of mind. I've been on other calls with other, amputees, and they, were on the verge of suicide, and, whether they were born with a disability or something happened where they had to amputate. It's just, you went through it fairly quickly, because you were like, in my first week, I really had the mindset that to just get through it. Some people go years or their whole lives without ever getting to that point. And I think
Mm.
it's because, is it because, like, a fear of judgment of others about them? Like, they fear that people are going to look at them differently or negatively. What's something that you say to really help people get out of that situation and kind of adjust their perspective? What are you helping people do?
No matter what, you're you. I would say to these people, you are you, and nobody else in the world can be you. And I would try to encourage them to tap into whatever they love and cherish about being themselves and whatever they love about themselves. And I would try to tap into that feeling of wanting to continue that and prolong that and really remember what it feels like to be happy and to be content with life and connect with whatever you're grateful for. I mean, it's way easier said than done, of course. This is a really hard situation, but to just really, for me, it was just this absolute need, this overriding need to still be me and to shine my light on the world and continue to live my life the way that only I see fit, and to just continue being myself, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Because I feel like, it's like something happened, or they look at themselves as being different, but assume they automatically label it as being a negative thing
Yeah.
when it's not. It's like if you came up to me and you were talking to me and you never saw anything wrong with yourself, then I would never put you in that category. The second that it kind of becomes weird, quote unquote, is when I'm getting the vibe from you that you see yourself as different in a negative way. Then it's like, I don't know really how to continue the conversation. I don't really know how to
Okay.
talk with you. Coming from outside of that world. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in that world that are in those situations, it's like they put a negative label on themselves, but then expect other people to take it off of them. And I think that's something that needs to just come from inside, is because we don't care that you have a disability, you know? And I think it's such a fine line. Obviously, I can't talk from I've never been in this situation, but for somebody that's in this situation and has come out of it, is that something that you are finding to be true? Where it's like, hey, people don't really judge you or care that you have a disability in
Um,
the grand scheme of things. Like you are fully capable of living your life by your terms and being happy, and you don't have to have this negative stamp on you just because you have a disability.
right. I agree with that. I think there is some judgment. I don't think there's any getting away from that. I do think people are really lovely and people are really kind. And I know for myself, in my personal experience, people have just been nothing but wonderful with me. And I really was surprised by that because in the beginning, I was preparing myself to deal with haters
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't turn out that way. But yeah, I think there is a little judgment. I think that because I know I have the experience of living with two legs and with one,
Mm-hmm.
so I have something to compare it to. I definitely do get treated differently now. Um, and I'm aware of that, but it's not in necessarily the negative way that I was prepared to deal with sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's really the point I was trying to make. It's like you were kind of preparing for a negative experience because of it, but your experience has been the complete opposite.
Yes.
And I think that's what, you know, just like I said, coming from the outside of it, and just this is just my opinion, is like if that was just more understood for people in that situation where, it's not a negative thing, stop beating yourself up about it. It happened, or, that's how life is now. So let's pick up and move on.
Yeah. I mean,
Just like
way
anything
easier said
else.
than done.
Yeah,
Way easier
absolutely.
said than done.
It's like any traumatic event. It doesn't have to be a disability or, having something amputated or anything like that. Like it's just if you were if you just walked into work one day and the company's downsizing and boom, you're out of your job and you spent 30 years at that position and now you're done. But you still have a family to feed. That's a traumatic event, but it's like, hey, you can sit there and sulk and have a pity party, or you can just get out there and make something happen. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And
you
your
know,
life is better lived that way.
yeah. And I think people just need to understand because ultimately it comes down to mindset. And so, what really were you using to keep yourself motivated, keep yourself, looking through a filter of positivity versus negatively? What tools were you using? Were you doing like personal development? Did you have certain things you were listening to? I know association is a big factor in that, so what are some of the things that you did to help keep that positivity going? That, once you made that switch in that first week to keep that going and then just keep growing on it.
Well, I definitely love music and I love dancing, and that's always been a huge outlet for me. And it still is. So music is really helpful. And I think that um, in a funny way, there was some positive feelings for me that came up with this. Um, in a way that I felt kind of protected by like a divine energy. Um, I know that for most people, losing your leg would feel like the opposite of being protected.
Hmm.
But in a funny way, I just kind of felt like it was the universe sort of shepherding me into a life that rang more true for myself. And the way that people started treating me just very gently and very kindly um, really just meant a lot and felt really good. So leaning into that for me was really helpful and just trying to focus on like the positives, and there are positives, surprisingly. There really are.
Yeah, and it's back to what we were just talking about it, where it's all about perspective. I think the perspective that you choose to have is what is going to create your present reality.
Yeah.
Because you can have two people in the same situation, but if one has a positive perspective and one has a negative perspective, they're going to have two different outcomes. And I think your choice, because it's a choice to stay positive, you know, and so your choice to stay positive has really helped you overcome things and accomplish things, because now, you're on paper, this shouldn't have happened, but you're still a model. You have the belly dancing going on, you're into fashion, you're a motivational speaker, an actress, and it's just, you never let this stop you from the goals you had from before the accident.
Right.
And it's really just really inspiring to hear. And so how has is because you kind of mentioned like the universe was kind of like guiding you along the way, and so I'll just put a label on it of like the importance of following your gut, your gut instinct, that little, you just get like the spidey sense going on and the feeling that that's something that you need to be doing or not doing. How has that played a role since the accident? And I mean, was it something that kind of you just trusted and you did before the accident, or did it really take effect after?
I've always been a little street smart, but I think that I definitely used to push things down and ignore certain feelings. I think, especially being an exotic dancer and even a belly dancer, sometimes you just will do better if you ignore certain feelings. And you kind of have to compartmentalize things and um, detach yourself from certain feelings in order to be successful,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. So I think that's just the way that it is. And I mean, a lot less with being a belly dancer. You get into certain situations once in a while with a customer who's like being disrespectful. But for the most part, that was actually okay, but more with being an exotic dancer.
Yeah.
But I think now I really try and pay attention to how I feel about certain things. And I try not to bother with stuff that gets my spidey sense tingling.
Yeah.
If I feel like something's not right, I try to go around it and try to really lean into the things that feel good because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Hopefully, nothing as bad as this.
Hopefully you experience the worst of it, right?
Yeah.
Then again, it's the universe. It's, nobody knows what's coming tomorrow. Nobody knows if there is a tomorrow. And I was on a call. It's, the past is in the past, and the future's in the future. So why are you worrying about it? And, so just focus on the present. And because that's all that that you have for sure is
Yeah.
what's going on right now. And another topic that, I think would be pretty relevant is just not living with regret. Because regret is so negative. Like, yes, learn your lessons and things of that sort, but I don't want to be the 80-year-old that's, sitting on my chair or whatever and be like, oh, I wish I built that business or anything like that. Just get out there and do it. But at the same time, don't look back, if you're only in your 30s, 40s, or whatever it is. Like, we're still young. So, oh, I wish I did this. Then get out there and do it. Don't regret not doing something 2 years ago or 5 years ago and then never doing it. Just, get out there and do it, because you were pursuing acting and modeling and dancing and things of that sort. And post accident, you didn't let that even be a factor of not continuing to pursue those same goals.
Yeah, and before the accident, I really kind of stopped pursuing those goals, actually. Like, I wasn't even really actively pursuing acting when this happened to me, even though that had been my lifelong dream. And that was part of the reason that I came out to LA. It was just kind of something that I fell out of. And so after the accident, it gave me a lot more confidence to go after those goals like I hadn't before.
Yeah, it's a driver, and because we're just, the combination of all of our experiences. And so everybody's a different, unique individual. Everybody goes through different life experiences. But how you react to those experiences is what defines you as a person. Because, everybody has bad stuff happening. You know that firsthand on having traumatic events happen. And just how you react to them is really what determines what your present and what your potential future will be. And so what really were the steps to keep you pursuing acting? Because that seems like a very big task. I mean, becoming an actress in itself is big enough, And so what are you finding work for you, work against you, since you're really picking that back up?
Okay.
Because
Well,
LA and Hollywood is a different animal in itself.
sure.
you know.
Um, it was a big goal of mine uh, since forever to have an agent. When I moved to LA, that was something that I was kind of pursuing and didn't really happen, and I kind of stopped pursuing it. So getting an agent was a really big milestone for me. Just getting to go on those bigger, better auditions and go for parts that were really right for me
Mm-hmm.
was a big deal. And I think just I really was hungry to put myself out there. And I really took every opportunity I got, networking or otherwise, to just uh, put myself out there and make it known to the universe, which I keep talking about, but the universe,
Yeah.
that I really wanted to do this. And I think when no part of you is hiding, that really makes a big difference.
And so, how has being genuinely authentic helped really change your life in the broad sense? Because
Um,
that's something that's really happening. Because it's easy to get caught up in fake and all of that stuff, especially in LA. Has a lot of fake. But, staying genuine and being authentic, I think, plays a big part in your role, or in your story, I should say.
yeah,
And
yeah.
how has that helped you?
I think I just feel
If you can
better.
even explain that.
Yeah, I think I just feel better.
No, yeah. I mean, you don't have to worry about, being caught in a lie. And I think a lot of people just, they let the the ease of being fake on social media affect them in real life, and that's just a big trap that people fall in. And in case people want to kind of find out more about you, more about your story or what you're up to, where can people get your information and if they want to look you up and or reach out to you if they have, a loved one that's fighting with a disability and they're not too sure what to do? Where can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me at www.meetzoe.com. That's meetxoe.com. I'm on Facebook as Zoe Xapoian, and I'm also on Instagram as XOEXXAPOIAN, Zoe Xapoian.
Perfect. And any projects you're working on now in the acting modeling world that everybody needs to be looking out for?
My big project is definitely my documentary. That's going to be really special. It's something that means a lot to me. That is being edited right now, and it is going to be submitted to film festivals, and we'll see what happens with that. Depending on what it gets accepted into, we'll be releasing it to the public.
Nice. Or is it like Sundance and Cannes and
Yeah, we're
those
going
types?
for the big ones.
Nice. There you go. Yeah, might as well, right? Go big or go home.
Absolutely.
No, I love it. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day. I know you're busy and things of that sort, so it really does mean a lot. I just want to make sure that we're able to help bring inspiration to anybody and everybody as much as we can. So thank you. I appreciate your time, Zoe. And you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you on the big screen.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. You have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, guys. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Blast Talks. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends too, because we got a lot more coming for you, and I know you're going to love it.